All right, comment section. You asked and you shall receive. You can call me the Jesus of YouTube footballing world if you want. You've wanted a Borussia Dortmund clip, and I've been waiting patiently because they've been so active in and out. Buying in players, bringing them in, selling off their captain. Jesus, don't remind the Dortmund fans of that again. But they have a good squad this season, a very good squad. Could they potentially take advantage of a in-transition Bayern Munich? Of course, mentioning the managerial staff and a couple of players elsewhere. But we've got in Phil Brown from Beyond the Pitch, who we just broke down La Liga, fantastic analysis. And now we're going to touch on Bundesliga. So, again, limited time in here, lads. We know that I'd love to break down Werder Bremen, I'd love to break down Wolfsburg, I'd love to break down Schalke, all the different moving pieces. But we're a one-man band most of the time, so we're here to discuss the main question is, can Borussia Dortmund, or any other team for that matter, overthrow Bayern Munich?
Bayern start with such a huge advantage.
Yeah.
They're so much stronger than Borussia Dortmund. They get the pick of the players. Borussia Dortmund bring in, they buy really, really well.
Yeah.
They're very strategic in how they prepare for exits. I think Gotze coming back is a smart signing for them. I think Thomas Tuchel is a fantastic young coach who's come in and is... He gets compared to Jurgen Klopp, but he's very different to Klopp.
Yeah.
And so, for me, a lot has to go wrong for Bayern Munich over a 36, 34 game season for them to lose the title. But Borussia Dortmund, for me, are stronger this season than what they were last season. They kept Aubameyang, which was really important. Yeah. And, for instance, they do an exceptional job of taking players and improving them. Yeah. Mkhitaryan, we've seen Kago coming back. They do a brilliant job, and I think mixed with their youth, because they've got exceptional youth, that's a Dortmund team that will capitalise on any mistakes, although I don't see it.
So you mentioned there about the transfer. I was going to throw up this real quick graphic. And the players, I mean, the big names coming in. André Schurrle, you guys know I'm a big fan of him in the past. So he comes in. Mario Götze, Dembele, Guerreiro, Rode from Bayern Munich as well. Bartra from Barcelona, a good young player coming in. Moore and Marino. So they have added players. Some added necessity, especially when you've got Mads Hummels going, bringing in a Bartra as a good signing to come in. Yeah. But I'm going to say something that I think will be a little controversial. Some may disagree, some may agree. I think Mkhitaryan could be a worse loss for them than Mads Hummels, simply because I don't think defensively Borussia Dortmund are going to be under any major transition, any major hindrance. I think Hummels is a fantastic player. I think losing him to Bayern Munich and them getting stronger is the bigger loss than actually losing him themselves. If you pass him off to another team that's outside of Bundesliga, then yes, it's still a loss, but you can replace that. But giving them to your direct rivals who are only going to get stronger with a united German partnership in Boateng and Hummels is a big problem. But Mkhitaryan, the assist machine, the guy that's averaged anywhere between 10 and 13 assists a season for Borussia Dortmund in his tenure there. How big of a loss do you think someone like that is to that team?
Well, first of all, the two hardest things to do in football are to score and create goals.
Yeah.
You've got a guy that's in the peak of his career, scoring goals, creating goals. That's almost impossible to replace. I remember when United scouted Hummels. The scouting report on him, Francis, was he's slow. And they were concerned about his lack of pace in the Premier League. I think Mats Hummels is much easier to replace for them than Mkhitaryan. Yeah. Where do you get another Mkhitaryan? Yeah. You know, they got Mkhitaryan over Liverpool when he left Shakhtar. Everybody wanted to get their hands on him. So for me, I think he's a much harder player to replace than Mats Hummels.
Yeah, and I think that football fans are often swayed by the name, right? Sure. I mean, Hummels is an easier name to spell than Mkhitaryan. But maybe they'll, Hummels, man, he's a captain. He's the German international. He's composed. He's Beckenbauer-esque in the way that he passes the ball out. Let's not compare to Beckenbauer just yet, because that is quite the comparison. But we're both in the same boat when it comes to that. They've adequately tried to replace him, because you know Marco Reus is going to contribute for goals and assists, pending he's fit. And you know that they've got almost immeasurable talent in Aubameyang up top. He's going to have goals. Yep. Bringing in André Schurrle is such an efficient, well-managed acquisition, because the guy knows how to create chances. He knows how to perform in the Bundesliga. He knows how to perform in a German environment. You put him in the squad for Chelsea and you put him side by side to the André Schurrle in Germany, they don't look like the same player. There's no sense of belief in his game. When he played in the Premier League, one of his biggest downfalls, I think, under Jose Mourinho and other managers was he didn't track back enough. But in German football, he's got a license to go forward, a license to provide and assist. And you get a Mario Götze who can be confident, and a Dembele and a Guerreiro in there, and united together with the right purpose. I think they can pose a question to Bayern Munich. But again, it's exactly what you just mentioned. The same thing that happens in a clip when you're trying to push Atletico Madrid to go and try and rival Barcelona and Real Madrid, is you need to rely on them not clicking, not as much on them performing.
Well, the positive for Borussia Dortmund is these are players that are coming into the prime of their career with points to prove.
Yeah.
Schurrle, as a young player, went to Chelsea, cost a lot of money, didn't quite perform to the levels. He's a winger that tucks in quite a bit, cuts inside, so he's almost an inside forward rather than an out-and-out winger. So Schurrle has a point to prove. Gotze has a point to prove. That's a good position for Dortmund to be in, because it's a football club that knows how to encourage players. It's not Bayern Munich where you're constantly in the spotlight. Every little mistake you're going to get destroyed for it. You've got somebody over your shoulder that's going to take your place, and you can be out of the team for a couple of months. So I think it's a familiar environment for Gotze with a point to prove, and Schurrle, who also has a point to prove. I think those will be two good signings for Dortmund.
Yeah, so we can move over to the other club in Germany who, again, they've been active in the transfer window as well. We mentioned Hummels, so there's no need to repeat that. Renato Sanchez coming in there, another player that is undoubtedly going to look to have a point to prove in that team. They've got an overall great sense of squad depth. And before just touching on the signings, the biggest acquisition, of course, is Carlo Ancelotti. It's following trait with the fact that managers are often taking the plaudits coming into a team this year, because there's so many different moving pieces. Guardiola at Man City, Jose Mourinho at Manchester United, and Conte at Chelsea. There's so many big managers that have moved this year that everyone's looking to see how are these managers going to perform? Who's going to have the easiest task? I think that Ancelotti has got a little bit of a harder task than what many people will attribute to, because he doesn't play a 4-2-3-1. He has done before, but it's not his go-to system. Do you think that he goes in and immediately tries to install a 4-4-2? And do you think that he will almost try to be safe at first and emulate a Pep Guardiola successful team, that 4-2-3-1 that they've been known to execute very well in the Bundesliga?
Yeah, so they're very Ancelotti. Bayern Munich done enormous amount of research into that transition.
Yeah.
Who makes most sense? When you look at when they transferred from Heynckes to Guardiola, they appointed Guardiola 6 months before.
Yeah.
They brought him in. They did exactly the same with Ancelotti. 6 months before, this is the guy that we want. Once they knew Guardiola went out, I think you'll see nominal changes that don't mirror each other.
Yeah.
I do wonder if Ancelotti will continue with the Philipp Lahm experiment in midfield. I think you'll see some changes in the way they line up, not a true 4-2-3-1. So I think what you'll see with Bayern Munich is very much what you saw with Ancelotti's Chelsea. They'll mirror that, and they have so much diversity in that lineup in terms of the players that they have available. It's so easy. World-class players can play anywhere.
Yeah.
So if Philipp Lahm needs to drop in the midfield, they have that ability. But I think you'll see a very functional Bayern Munich 4-4-2 with the ball.
Yeah.
And then when they don't have the ball, then into a 4-2-3-1 where they condense the midfield to win the ball back. Because that's Guardiola's team did that very well.
Yeah, undoubtedly so. And do you see maybe someone like a Robert Lewandowski even thriving further under Ancelotti? Do you see his... Because when Ancelotti played in that 4-2... I don't think Ancelotti played in the 4-2-3-1. When Lewandowski played at the head of that 4-2-3-1, when in form, he was almost unstoppable. I kind of criticised him a little bit in the Euros and proved that, yeah, he's a phenomenal striker, but if you don't have a kind of system around him that helps benefit his in-the-box movement, and where he has to maybe go outside of his norm, he doesn't thrive as well. Do you think that he'll adapt well to Ancelotti? Do you think he's the type of striker that will still go on to obtain just as great accolades as what he did with Guardiola?
Yeah, well, it's hard to see him improving, because I think he's at that point where he's going to be consistently very good, but you're not going to get much more improvement out of him. I mean, I thought last season was a really big year for him in terms of growing as a football player and accepting the pressure that comes with playing for Bayern Munich, delivering. You know, we saw him score 5 goals in a game.
Yeah. So I don't know the exact minutes.
Arguably, for me, the best striker in the world last season at Bayern Munich. Maybe what you'll get with Bayern Munich under Ancelotti, Guardiola unfairly was labelled with tiki-taka.
Yeah.
But if you listen to Guardiola, he will tell you that possession football with a very direct intent to get to the goal as quick as possible and score goals is not his game.
Yeah.
And I've heard Thierry Henry talk about this. But he likes his strikers to not stay central. He likes his strikers to drop in, drop out wide. I think with Ancelotti's going to keep him much more central, in which case I would expect Lewandowski to, at the very least, match what he done this season. So Ancelotti for him will be a positive.
Interesting, very interesting. So, wrapping the clip up, we're not going to tease you all that without giving our predictions. Who wins it?
Bayern Munich.
You think Bayern Munich win it this year?
I wouldn't put money on anyone else.
Yeah, so I would love to stake a claim for the yellow and black.
I would too.
I mean, I think it's very similar effect. There's certain clubs in the world that you just want to see do well. Dortmund's fan base, the hardships that they've had to face from players moving, you want them to do well. You're almost rooting for them every game that's possible. But I think with both their movement in the transfer window, I think that Bayern Munich will have enough. I think they'll be closer. I think that they could still potentially push them.
I agree.
I think they've got a team that can push them further. And that's not saying that a Werder Bremen or a Schalke, even though they've lost one of their veterans, Joao Matip, who played since he was like 8 at that club, man. The guy's been there for years. Won't have the potential to stake a claim. But it's almost as if each and every team in Germany has to play their part in order for Dortmund to win it, if that makes sense. They have to play their part by pushing Bayern Munich to the limit and potentially taking points from them. Because if Dortmund perform well, undoubtedly well, they still have to rely on a Bayern Munich being inconsistent, I think. And
you've got the issue of Wolfsburg, they're losing. It looks like Julian Draxler's going to leave.
Yeah.
They have a problem holding on to their best players. Look, it's a fantastic league for a young player to develop. It's a league that will give young players an opportunity. But as far as getting another 4 or 5 teams that are capable of challenging Bayern Munich or Borussia Dortmund with consistency, that's very difficult.
Yeah, undoubtedly. All right, well, you've heard it. 2 guys, 2 vests, a whole lot of football knowledge. Make sure to check out all of the previews. We talked about La Liga. We talked about some football kits as well, previewing the kits for this season. Check out the podcast Beyond the Pitch with Phil on that and on Twitter. Check out all the stuff below. But, mate, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
All right, boys.
Cheers, mate.
See you later.